broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome to the Wyoming Women's Business Center's 2021 webinar series. Today's presentation is Connection, Community, and Capital, which is a live Q&A about crowdfunding. And we do have our special guest here today to answer your questions about crowdfunding. I'm Veronica Donahue from our COVID-19 support program, and I'll be your moderator today. You will notice the GoToWebinar control panel on the right side of your screen. I want to call special attention to both the questions panel and the chat box. If you have any questions or comments during the webinar today, and I hope you do because it is a live Q&A, I'd like you to use those questions panel or chat box to communicate with us. And as a reminder, all participants are muted to minimize background noise. This webinar is being recorded, and a link to the webinar recording will be emailed to all registered attendees following the presentation today. And if you're watching this webinar live, a survey will launch shortly after we close the presentation. And I do ask that you please complete this survey as it provides us and our funding partners with valuable information. Now, before I introduce our guest speakers, I want to start out with some quick information about the Wyoming Women's Business Center in case you're not yet familiar with our organization. The Wyoming Women's Business Center is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to enable and empower Wyoming entrepreneurs with a special emphasis on women who are economically or socially disadvantaged. And we do this through 4 distinct programs. The first is our business counseling and training program, which is always free. The second is our microfinance programs, which offer microloans and individual development accounts. Third is the Artist Development Center we run in conjunction with our Works of Wyoming store and Art Connect Gallery in downtown Laramie. And lastly, we launched our COVID-19 support program early last summer, and this webinar is brought to you by our COVID-19 support program. And I want to call attention to that list of services available to Wyoming business owners when they become clients. You can sign up by going to wyomingwomen.org or contact me directly using my contact information at the bottom of the screen. And of course, today's webinar is about crowdfunding, and this is part of our COVID-19 support program. Okay, now that we've gone through those opening slides, I am so happy to introduce our guest speakers and crowdfunding experts today. So of course we had to invite Jessica Brauer on because she is our COVID-19 support program outreach marketing counselor. Jessica is an incredible resource for our clients, and she has had an incredible career not only with economic development agencies and nonprofits, but working with small businesses and being an entrepreneur herself. Jessica, it's great to have you on. I see you turn your webcam. Do you have anything to add to my introduction?
No, I don't think so. I think you pretty well covered it. I'm very happy to be here and to chat with you this afternoon.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. And of course, our other guest speaker and expert is Scott Madsen. Scott is the Director of Relationships and Marketing at Crowdfund Better. He is a crowdfunding consultant with a wealth of experience working at that individual grassroots level of marketing and campaign creation. I just think Crowdfund Better is a phenomenal asset to our program because of that individualized support they're providing our COVID-19 clients. Of course, if you're impressed today and would like to meet with Scott and Jessica, all you need to do is sign up on our website at wyomingwomen.org. Scott, it's great to see you today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. Live streaming here from Boise, Idaho, but that doesn't mean, you know, we're rivals, we're neighbors here in crowdfunding, right? So I'm glad to be able to be able to contribute to the Women's Business Center. I always want to say Wyoming Women's, and yeah, obviously I'm tongue-tied today. Thank you for having me on. Looking forward to answering questions.
Awesome. Great. Well, thanks to both of you for joining us today and sharing your expertise about crowdfunding and, of course, community, connection, and capital. Now, I think it's important that we get a quick overview of what crowdfunding is, and I did get a slide from Jessica, so I'll turn it over to her, and then we'll get into those questions.
Yes, so a lot of people are just here because they want to know what the heck is this crowdfunding thing that you're talking about. So just a basic overview of what is crowdfunding. So crowdfunding is the practice of sourcing small contributions, small financial contributions typically, from a large number of people to provide funding for a particular project or campaign, usually via the internet. So you've probably seen this on platforms like GoFundMe, Kickstarter, Indiegogo, raising funds to launch a product, to expand a business, to support somebody in need. So that is essentially what crowdfunding is. You'll see here a screenshot from the crowdfunding platform that we work with called the Local Crowd, which I imagine we'll dive into a little bit more when we get into the Q&A section, and some campaigns that have come to life because of the beauty of crowdfunding.
Awesome. Well, that's a great overview of what crowdfunding is. So thanks for sharing that. I know our first question was, can you just explain the principle of crowdfunding? And I think you answered that one. So I just want to ask all of our attendees, if you have any questions, go to that questions panel and chat box and put them in whenever they come up for you. So I actually have my own question as we move to the question slide to kind of get us started. So I know the Local Crowd is what's called a rewards-based platform, and I think that sounds kind of vague at first, so I was hoping that you guys could shed some light on what a rewards-based platform is.
Sure. There's in the crowdfunding ecosystem, I'll even take a further step back, right? The crowdfunding ecosystem is actually made up of 4 types of crowdfunding. So as Jessica had mentioned, platforms like GoFundMe tend to be donation. We like to call those more on a personal cause kind of level, as opposed to maybe a specific nonprofit, which there's other platforms that actually have vetted nonprofits that use their donation platform. So that's donation. So often you associate that with obviously a nonprofit or kind of a heart-centered cause. You know, if somebody's had an emergency situation come up, obviously natural disasters and things like that, that you can help support in kind of an immediate, donation. You expect nothing, but you want that to that issue, that cause to be addressed or supported. Rewards crowdfunding is more of an exchange, right? So this is obviously a very good starting position, we'd like to say, for small business owners, whether you're existing or just an idea that you want to see if it could exist, or taking it from a hobby to more of a full-time career, where it's an exchange. So you get financial support from your community, and then in exchange, you provide something in return. And that could be a digital reward. That could be, often it's referred to as t-shirts and mugs, but not all of our businesses are in the creation of t-shirts and mugs. So the rewards don't have to be limited to that either. And it also could be experiences that are unique and valuable to your community, which could be everything from one-on-one chef, course that's prepared as a reward, etc. The next level is usually lending, which is often associated with Kiva. So it's basically going to your community to get a loan from your community that you pay off just like you would to the bank, but instead of it being the bank, it's your community that provides the money, and then you pay that back. And then the final type of crowdfunding is investment crowdfunding, which relatively speaking is new. That's been passed in the 2012 Jobs Act. That was actually put in place in 2016, where people can truly invest in your business, and that could either be as equity, as revenue share, or as debt that then can be paid off or be able to get a financial return, which is great when you're talking about wealth generation, especially if you're a local business or a state business, but it can also be done on the federal level. I won't get into all that because it could get really crazy fast, but nonetheless, what we'll be focusing on mostly, Jessica and I today, will be the rewards aspect, which the Local Crowd is definitely a solid platform that I'll be happy to chime in on why we like that platform and why it's been really successful with Wyoming entrepreneurs as well.
Great. Well, it's awesome that we know about all 4 types of crowdfunding. I know that different businesses and different industries might lean better towards one than another. So we do have some questions coming in that are somewhat specific. So this person is starting or in the beginning phases of a supplement business. So they're creating a supplement and they're needing some money to help with research and product development. So they said, can we seek donations to start working on product development for our for-profit company?
So that is essentially what crowdfunding is. It wouldn't be, I don't like to refer to it as donations, because then we start to think about the nonprofit world where we're exchanging money kind of as a gesture of kindness, and that it ends there. Well, crowdfunding is still a gesture of kindness. It's still coming from the heart. It's more of a transaction. So you're exchanging cash in the form of financial contribution in exchange for something. So maybe that is a product or a service or opportunity to attend an event or something like that. So in the case of the supplement, you obviously wouldn't be the supplement isn't ready to sell just yet. So maybe you pre-sell the supplement, or maybe you offer, if you had developed a product in the past that is in alignment with that speaks to that audience in a similar way, then maybe you sell that in exchange for financial contribution. So you absolutely can use crowdfunding to help you raise funds for the development of this product, but I wouldn't necessarily use it, or I wouldn't necessarily package it in my mind as getting donations.
And I'd agree with Jessica. I think the strategy for that particular example, if you haven't been able to develop the product, obviously a supplement's a little different because I'm sure there's some kind of FDA factors that might be involved there as well. We have worked with some healthcare associated campaigners before, where they've actually been able to use the funds if you haven't been certified to be able to get your product tested. And it costs a couple $1,000s at times to get FDA certification to then get your product tested if you have at least a prototype or something, or before you develop the prototype even. So we've had campaigners raise funds to be able to cover those costs, so then they can move on to the next prototype development stage, et cetera. So the nice thing with crowdfunding that I say, and this is a good way to lead into an example of crowdfunding doesn't have to be everything at once. So if you ultimately have $100,000 that you need to raise to be able to go from idea to actual product being sold on the shelves, for example, for the supplements, you can do it in stages. So if you have to raise money to be able to get your certification, to then create the prototype, to then get the testing done, to then be able to actually create and manufacture the product, those could be 4 different campaigns separately. We like to refer to that as kind of a stepping stone crowdfunding. So that way, not only is it more manageable for your community to be able to support you financially, as well as for you to be able to reach that goal, especially if you're early on and you're not an existing business, you don't already have necessarily an existing audience or community that's ready to support you. So as you're creating that, this campaign can also be a way to do that, to initially create that first community, that first level of supporters, to then be able to raise the funds to move your business to the next level. So then you can do that multiple times. So that way, ultimately, success breeds success. And if you say what you're going to do with the funds that you receive and you do it in the time that you say you will, most people will come back and support you again, because unlike a lot of people that just talk and do no action, they've entrusted you with financial support, and then you've actually executed or delivered on what you said you will, including your rewards if you're offering them, then the next time around, the likelihood that those folks will come back is high. And we've seen it over and over with multiple successful campaign creators that have come back to their community multiple times over years, to be able to continue expanding their business, whether that's new products or new locations, or even just a new line within their existing business. So it's an excellent way to test test your market, get audience market validation, and obviously acquire customers, which is going to help your business too.
Great. This really reminds me that if you sign up for our crowdfunding program, you can, of course, meet with Scott one-on-one and Jessica one-on-one to talk specifically about your business issues and your goals for any campaign ideas you have. But I'm really curious, you know, the idea of a goal is obviously a big part of crowdfunding. And is there any guidance or advice you could give people in establishing a goal for a crowdfunding campaign?
I mean, that's precisely why we're here. I think the program is set up in a way so you chat with Scott and you chat with me and you chat with the local crowd, because so much of your campaign is behind the scenes. You know, there's this false belief that you just kind of like type a number into the internet and then all of a sudden cash is going to show up in your mailbox, and that would be beautiful. I would be doing that every day, but that's not how it works. So there is a lot of building behind the scenes, and so there isn't any goal that is you know, like this goal is great for every business. So you'll talk to Scott, you'll talk to the local crowd, you'll talk to me, and we'll talk to you about your audience. How many people do you have connections with? How are you connecting with them? Your email list, your social media, your website, all that kind of stuff. And then we kind of back into your goal, because we want to set an achievable goal, because nobody wants to launch a campaign and then have it be crickets. So that's why we're all here. We help you build out that whole campaign, and a big part of that process is looking at your numbers, looking at your budget, looking at your lists, and then deciding what goal makes the most sense for you. So I'm not sure, you know, I'm not sure that that's a like perfectly clean answer that fits everybody, but because unfortunately there isn't one. It is very much so going to vary based on business, based on how they operate, where they're at, and that's exactly why we're here.
Yeah, and I'll add to that. The beautiful part of why Crowdfund Better is so happy to be involved and working with the Women's Business Center there in Wyoming is that we actually have a data-backed crowdfunding report that we create. Part of that first step in working in this program is that you'll actually answer an online questionnaire that we've developed over the years to really highlight areas that you may need to focus on, that you may or may not have developed, and we'll be able to identify that and then actually personalize not only where we think you should focus to make the most impact for the actions that you'll be taking in advance in preparing for your crowdfunding campaign, which obviously will help you also identify, you know, your goals. So we'll give examples not only of the industry averages for maybe your business sector or industry, but also campaigns that are similar to yours that have been successful, or at times not, which sometimes is just as helpful, because unlike a lot of the campaigns that are out there, the data is generally from folks that haven't been helped from consultants. So you actually are already getting a leg up in knowing some of the averages and expectations of your industry in the crowdfunding world. So that way then you can be able to start breaking down what's a reasonable goal, what can my community support, and we'll give you suggestions on how to be able to focus your energy into making that highest chance of success possible. In addition to obviously the guidance and support that Jessica will be able to provide as a Women's Business Center that crowdfunding doesn't necessarily do. And then of course the help from the local crowd to be able to actually set up your campaign page. So goals don't always have to be exclusive to financial goals. I think that's part of what I was hearing in your question as well. Does a goal always have to be tied to money? And we would say the answer is no. Sometimes that's maybe the most tangible way of setting a goal. But often because of the idea of, especially if you're trying to acquire new customers or if you're trying to test a new product before you actually manufacture it, crowdfunding is a great way to kind of learn fast, fail fast, develop fast, fund fast. Because obviously if folks in your community, existing clients, et cetera, are interested and excited and want to see that product or that service being created, they're going to put their money behind it so it does happen. And if they don't, then maybe there is no market for it. Part of that is also ensuring that you have a big enough community to actually support you to make that happen too. So that's also part of that services that we provide to be able to give you kind of that realistic picture and how you can make that possible. Because there are some back-end stuff that really does help. It's all about preparation ultimately. If you don't prepare, you can't just put a page up and expect them, as Jessica said, money to be falling from the sky. Nobody's waiting for your campaign, so you have to do the work to get them excited and ready and aware. The last thing you want to do is have some door-to-door salesman come to your door and say, here's the vacuum you wanted to buy. Were you in the market for a vacuum? Were you even looking for a vacuum? Same thing goes with crowdfunding. You can't just go out on the street and ask for money and expect people to give it to you. Same thing with your audience and your community. If you don't prepare them for what you're looking to do, then it's going to be hard for them to be interested or willing to support that. And you know, we're all busy, so sending one email, putting one social post equally, and this is getting into the strategy of it, I know, I'll back off, but you know, one time isn't enough either. So that's why we really focus on the preparation before the launch of the campaign, because you can't make a first impression twice. So when you want to make that successful campaign from the get-go, it really involves a lot of preparation beforehand.
Right. I think that the best part of our crowdfunding program and our crowdfunding support is that it really opens the door to learning more about that base element of learning how to market your business and how to build that support network. And I think, you know, that's what a lot of people shy away from, is that they're like, well, I don't have a network. I don't have a list of supporters yet. But working with the local crowd and Crowdfund Better, and of course Jessica, you can start building those foundational elements. So I did hear from our last webinars a lot, and just from learning about crowdfunding in general, is that one of the biggest things you can do is create an email list. And I was hoping that you guys could maybe talk about your best tips for email lists and preparing for a crowdfunding campaign.
Well, there's a lot to say about email.
Oh, I'm not sure. One, I'll take another.
Email is, much like a lot of marketing, it is a technical science side of, you know, your business. But what I've found in this COVID support program, in counseling clients, it is so emotional. It is so, it gets into vulnerability. It gets into feeling nervous about putting yourself out there and saying, hey, look at me, I have this thing and it's cool. I need you to look at it. That is difficult to do, whether you're posting on social media, whether you're talking to a crowd, whether you're sending an email. And so I think asking for an email to add to your list falls into that category. A lot of that kind of, you know, who am I to gather this? What am I going to do with this? I don't want to annoy anybody. They don't want to hear from me. We could talk for hours about this. So that is the thing I hear over and over and over again. I don't want to gather emails because I don't want to bother anybody. To which I say, you're in business and you need customers, and the only way your customers are going to find you, especially right now in a global pandemic, is by telling them you're in business in a digital space. And email is one of the best places to do that. Nobody here needs to be told that social media is an uncomfortable place to be right now. You know, it always is. It's always been complicated, especially when we have big things happening nationally, locally, all of that, the way the algorithms work. When you post something on social media, it's not guaranteed that your audience is going to see it. But when you send an email, I can't guarantee they're going to open it. I can't guarantee they're going to follow or unfollow or whatever. I can't guarantee they're going to buy anything, but I can guarantee it's going to get to them. And that's one of the only digital platforms that you have that kind of guarantee with. So that alone, to me, is reason to gather emails. Again, another thing we could talk about for hours. So I think knowing all of that, and then thinking about your list of email addresses, this is your audience, this is your crowd, this is who you're talking to say, hey, come look at this thing I'm doing, come support me, come help, come see how we can work together. So that list is crucial. If you don't have a list, it's kind of like going to give a keynote address to an empty room. I'm sure it's wonderful and I'm sure it's awesome, but there's nobody there. And so all of that is to say, gathering emails in some capacity. There's so many tools for it, and that's one of the great things that working with us and then chatting with Scott, he has. I see the reports that he sends to clients, and I'm always like, whoa, I haven't heard of this. This is so cool. So there's so many tools out there to connect to people, to gather emails, to send them content, to make it a little bit easier, to make it less scary. So I guess my take-home point here is, I know it's scary, I know it's vulnerable, but you have to do it.
And I could jump in on there on maybe the more technical marketing side of it, the markety, because it's true. Crowdfunding is a very vulnerable personal thing. You're putting yourself out there, you're asking for support, and often we found the folks that have never asked for help are generally the most successful at it, because it's finally giving an opportunity to your community to support you in a way they tangibly know they can. Most people aren't walking around saying like, oh, I want to give you money, because that might be insulting to you. They don't want to insult you, but if you come out and say, I need money to do this, now it's like, okay, this is a very specific reason. And if they know you as a person, then of course they're going to want to support you, and they might support you just because they know you, and regardless of what you're actually trying to do, just because they know who you are and what you're all about. But going back to the email side of it, statistically, email converts 30% more to conversion, to contribution, in comparison to less than 1% from social media, if you want to compare digital channels. So that in that sense alone, as Jessica had pointed out so well, unlike social media, email doesn't have an algorithm. If people have signed up, or if they have that email address added in their address book, the likelihood of that reaching that individual is much higher than hoping that an algorithm is going to put that in front of somebody in the next week. So the thing is with permissions, with opt-ins, with using email, is that people have said, yes, I want to receive that email. One of the biggest things that I can say that I've seen across the board with small businesses that have been in business for years and are just starting out, often the biggest thing they miss is getting emails, collecting it right away. So there's email marketing services out there, and one that we often refer to, especially for those just starting out that may not be earning a lot of revenue, is Mailchimp, due to the fact that it's free for the first 2,000 subscribers. So you can have a very basic kind of email marketing service available that you can plug into a landing page. Heck, they allow you to create your own landing page now as well. So you can actually have, if you don't have a website, you can create a landing page, you can have an email sign up, so you can start collecting those email addresses from the get-go. And that's going to allow you to be able to start being able to communicate with your community and building your community in a way that you're not waiting or hoping that algorithms will reach them on a social post that may or may not actually be seen by everybody. But if they opt in, you'll be able to communicate with them directly. And even if it's a major email list, email is still read one person at a time. And that's where that personal part comes into play. Even as a business newsletter, it doesn't have to be some long form, big, research paper. It could be a couple cool graphics, one picture, and a little blurb that's a personal note from you. It doesn't have to be major, but it's a way that you can communicate and connect and bring your community closer. And in these socially distanced times, like Jessica said, you can't always have, the big conferences or the big meetups like we used to. So what's the next best thing? Well, we can't be on a Zoom call with everybody all day. So email is also the next best way that you can be able to reach everybody in your community in a very personalized manner, but still on a level that is manageable for you as an individual. Because typing 500 emails, believe me, I've done it. It's not a pretty sight, and it's a lot quicker when you have an email service in place.
Right. I think email is just one of those tools that every single type of business can use. It's not restricted to just products or just services. It's really something everyone can do. And this kind of goes into the next question. Obviously there's so many different types of businesses out there. And we have a question from the audience. They're hoping to, they're planning out a restaurant and bar business, and they have, figured out their client audience and, kind of their specific niche, but they're still planning it out. They aren't really in that, open for business stage. So they're interested in crowdfunding as a way to help supplement their startup, and they feel like, it's exciting for people, and they're excited that this would be a way to test the market. So at what point would you recommend a startup restaurant kick off crowdfunding? She said you kind of have to let the cat out of the bag if you need the funds to really, have the project grow its legs. So do you have any advice for her?
I mean, my advice would be you need to have your vision crystal clear, so that you're communicating to your audience that we are building this thing together. Subconsciously, we can really sniff out a kind of half-baked idea. And so I think your audience isn't going to show up in the big way, the same way they would if you didn't communicate very clearly what you wanted to build. So I think that's very important. I think something like a restaurant, you probably, you're going to have other funding in place. And so I think knowing that there's skin in the game is valuable. And I think Scott can speak more to the kind of technical side of things, the budgeting side of things. But for me, as far as messaging goes, I would hesitate to tell anybody to press go on crowdfunding until you really had a good idea of what you were creating and how you were creating and exactly who it was going to serve, because you need to get them, they need to absorb that idea and really get emotionally attached to it in order to lend a hand to support you.
Yeah, I would say that crowdfunding is about storytelling, and it's about that personal connection. Once again, whether they know you as an individual or as the business owner or as somebody completely, just random that you've met at a convention or something, it's still a personal part that people will connect. I mean, ultimately, people support people. So if you don't tell your story and have a specific call to action or a specific ask, why you, I mean, we use a formula, why you, why now, why me, what next? And essentially that can work not only for setting up your campaign page and your video and your social media and your email marketing strategy, but it's, why are you the one to do this project? Why are you the one to create this restaurant? Why are you writing to the person or communicating with the person that you're requesting their support? Because it may not just be financial either. Maybe they have a restaurant connection. Maybe they're a wholesaler of equipment to help you actually build out your restaurant, so you can purchase the equipment, and maybe they can hook you up with the deal. And then why, what next is, what can they do to support you? How are they going to be helping you? And once again, that may not be, it could be an introduction. It could be as easy as, forward this on to one other person you think would care about the food that we're going to be cooking. But really, when it comes to, for this kind of, how early, I mean, it's never too early to prepare a crowdfunding campaign. And I think I would agree with Jessica in the sense that in regards to budgeting, crowdfunding can actually count as revenue. So what you can actually do, we like to say, kind of stack the capital. So maybe, most VCs aren't going to be talking to a restaurant owner. Sorry, but there's not going to be 10 times growth in 5 months. Just not going to happen. There's not those margins. So, unless there's a VC that really loves the food or the style of restaurant or something that you're creating, the likelihood of you reaching a VC is very slim. So then your community comes into play, right? And so if you can stack the capital where it's like, okay, if my community can get me $10,000, can I then go to a lender and get a loan and use that as kind of operational or seed money to then use as collateral instead of putting your house or your car or your 401k up against a loan? Why not have your community support you to help you have that revenue or at least some of that kind of operational capital to then build out a website, which actually can count as collateral. If you're creating a website for your business and you paid for somebody to create that, that's actually can be used as collateral for a lender or a bank, which then you can get a loan, which obviously if you're not getting revenue, a loan may not be the direction to go. So maybe you have some private investors in your, the rich uncle that we don't all have, but we all wish we did. But your community, that could be another way to also help. If you have a very public, visibly supported campaign that raised X amount of dollars, that had X amount of people that came to support you, now you can possibly use that as leverage in conversations for private investment. And sometimes you can actually use that as a way to guarantee more money because of that fact. It's like, well, if you get $10,000 and show that you have 200 people that want this to happen, then you might be able to use that in a loan application, in a grant application using a fiscal sponsor, or. So I would say definitely that's the kind of strategies that we also think of. How can you stack the capital to make the most of this? Really give you the biggest runway possible. Hopefully that answers some of that question.
Oh, I think that is so awesome. Scott just gave us a great example of the awesome advice he gives entrepreneurs and small businesses. He's definitely a great person to talk to when you're thinking about crowdfunding and thinking about those goals. So thanks for joining us. I know we're just about out of time. We might have gone over a little bit, but I do want to reemphasize that you are definitely eligible and able to speak to our crowdfunding experts one-on-one, specifically about your business, by going to our website at wyomingwomen.org. And of course, it is completely free and provided by the Wyoming Women's Business Center. So I'm going to go through our ending slides, but I just want to thank Jessica and Scott again for joining us today and giving us a little more information and sharing their awesome expertise. I know it's kind of hard when you work one-on-one that, people don't always see the great things that you do. So I want to thank you for joining us. And of course, any of our attendees, if you asked a question, I will follow up with you once I close the webinar today. All right, the Wyoming Women's Business Center is made possible through several partnership agencies, and our primary funding comes from the U.S. Small Business Administration and the Wyoming Business Council, and we are so thankful for their support and guidance, and we look forward to the work ahead. Of course, if you're interested in one-on-one business counseling for maybe your startup or expansion, you can always reach out to our business counselor, Jonathan Howdeshell. His phone and email are on the screen. And of course, if you're interested in crowdfunding or any of our other COVID-19 services, you can reach out to me, and my contact information is on the right. And you are able to find our contact information on our website as well. If you're a fan of our webinars and you liked the one today, we do have a full schedule for the next coming months from our COVID-19 support program, starting with our Practical Cybersecurity for Your Business series. And of course, you can go to our website at wyomingwomen.org and go to the training page to register for free and see our past webinars. And I just want to thank you all for attending and asking so many in-depth questions. A survey will pop up after I close the webinar today, and if you could please complete that, that would mean a lot to us. So thank you for joining, and I hope you have a great rest of your Thursday.